Hi guys, welcome back to Evolve Africa, where we are constantly changing to better people. So today we'll be having our conversation with Mr. Magaya, the man behind the camera, and we'll be talking about traumas. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today, Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you.
So karibu to the show, introduce yourself.
So yeah, my name is Lawrence Magaya. I'm a multimedia consultant, and I'm always behind the camera, so it feels very weird being in front of the camera.
Having you here.
Yeah. Yeah, so, traumas, I remember growing up wasn't the easiest of things to do, especially in the African, setup, because I remember growing up, it was difficult because anyone could punish you. You were a child of the society as opposed to a child of your family. Umeenda umepanda mapera huko, someone just comes and canes you. And then when you go home and you report yourself, you're caned again. And I think one of my first interactions with things that traumatized my life as a child, and what I used to see, the kind of beatings I used to receive, the kind of beatings my friends used to receive, that was crazy. Yes. Yeah.
And so would you advocate for kids not to be beaten?
I've been thinking about this for a while, and this is what I say. Africa, if you just ask people about African moms, it comes with a beating. That is like their job description. But then you wonder if beatings were actually a way of discipline, then Africa should be the most disciplined continent. But it's not the same. You look at the West and you realize their form of discipline is different. They tell their kids to go stand facing a wall, or they talk to their kids. And turns out, seems like that actually works because they are superpowers. They are way ahead of us. But if beatings were doing the thing, then it means we should be so disciplined. But look at Africa. We are one of the most corrupt continents. We are one of the most tribalistic people. So I don't think it's a system that works. I think it needs to be balanced. But for us, it was the mistake you do would not measure up to the beating you'd receive. Sometimes we would even get into a fist fight. Yeah, so some of from my personal perspective, some of the traumas I went through came out as a child because maybe I was too playful and I go home having hurt myself. And maybe you anticipate sympathy, but then again, sympathy doesn't find you, you find a beating. And this I used also to see around a lot of my friends, even my brother, my sisters. You'd see a lot of this, but this would change one's personality because now it means you're no longer that person that you'd want to be. You no longer are free to go out there and just play.
How do you think the beatings caused trauma and kind of impacted the person that you are today as opposed to the person you could have been maybe if there were no beatings?
I would start by saying this, mixed emotions, because assuming that I was left at home, just working with a scenario, and remember your parent is someone you love with all your heart. This is your security. So once you're used to your parent you're not sure what will happen, whether you washed the dishes right or you cleaned the house right, you're not sure what the kind of reception you're going to get when your parent shows up. So you have this fear mixed up with love that gets you really confused. So you're in a state where you're not sure whether to get excited that your parent has come home, or you're not sure whether to get fearful because your parent is home. So these mixed feelings, this mixed set of emotions, they change someone. So you're not sure whether to be yourself. So you cannot just be yourself in the house. It's your house, it's your parents' house, but you're not sure if what you're going to do is going to bring in pain or it's going to bring in love, So you end up trying to be what your parent wants you to be as opposed to you growing up and being yourself.
Gosh, that's so powerful. I think that's true. So we move on. So now you're becoming a young adult. Do the beatings?
Yes, the beatings subside as you grow up, because also as you grow up, as I grew up, I started putting on a mask. because then I could not be myself, because I learned you go this direction, you get pain, you go this direction, you know. So you end up being a version that is pleasing to your parents. And this is the problem that happens when even you see people go to high school, where you're called to school because your kid did something and you're wondering, is that really my kid? Because there is that form of dissociation. You cannot relate to your kid because they've given you a face, a mask that you see in the house, and you think that your kid is very disciplined, but then later on you come to realize that your kid is a troublemaker out there because they've shown you a mask, and out there they're trying to become themselves. The good thing is I never went through that, because I think that the personality that I developed, which became a very calm, quiet personality, I went through with it through high school, because I learned how not to attract trouble. You know, I just learned, like, okay, you don't want to attract trouble, keep quiet, lean back and watch, you know, and you won't attract a lot of trouble. But the moment you're a loudmouth and you are on everyone's, opinion, or you're always around everyone's business, you'll attract trouble. So that is how I learned how to, pull back. But then it made me into an introvert. I don't think I was an introvert as a child.
Oh my goodness, that is...
I acquired introversion because it was a way to survive, to avoid beatings, and also the other thing I also learned in the process is truth will bring you trouble. When you speak truth, it brings you trouble. So instead of lying, keep quiet. Yeah.
Gosh, that is so powerful, because I think unknowingly that is what we are teaching our child.
Yes, of course.
When we punish them and we are not explaining the reason why.
Because now, when you tell the truth, you'd get punished. When you tell a lie, you get punished. It doesn't matter. So the best way would be to go quiet, And I also realized that foundations are built in childhood. And when we don't allow our kids to be themselves as children, we don't know what we're actually doing, but we are changing who they are in future. Because again, for people who go through this kind of environment where there's constantly, corporal, we call it corporal punishment, even in school. Because for us, it was not just at home. It was also in school. So you even develop a negative attitude towards school and studies. You no longer look forward to that math class. Because you're scared when that math teacher is going to walk in. The next thing, when he asks a question or she asks a question and you're wrong, it's going to be a beating. So that made so many people quit school. I remember some of my friends quit school because of just the aspect of you're expected to speak in English and you're not eloquent in English, and then you're given a dice, and the dice means a beating. So our environment was all around just trauma as a result of beatings. So it even takes away your self-confidence, because you end up not being able to express yourself. And even if you're wrong, if you're wrong and you're going to be beaten, it means you'd rather keep quiet to avoid that.
I agree.
For me, it just made me into an introvert, but also made me start to pursue knowledge, so that I avoid some of these things, just in case I'm asked a question. I got it right.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So that was my primary. And I remember now, other traumas that I experienced, I think when I started dating now, that's different trauma, because you get into teenagehood and no one ever sat down and talked to you about teenagehood. So you don't know what's happening around you. You're just noticing things are off. My shoulders are broadening and you're like, hey, what's going on? I'm becoming really tall. And then my voice has changed, and now you're ashamed of speaking in public to your peers, And then when you go home, it's not even better. Your friends are like, hey, no, but look at anywhere. So it was a tricky way to grow, because no one prepares you for teenagehood. And no one also prepares you for the changes that are internal. Forget the changes that are outside, because again, you're unproportional. You have, broad shoulders, long legs. You're still skinny. Your voice has changed. You're very unprofessional. Unproportional. Your face is looking funny. Maybe some pimples. So you're going through a time when you're wondering what is going on, and no one comes to tell you that this is what is happening to you. And then you start realizing that you're attracted to the opposite sex. And coming from a place of not being confident, that becomes a problem, because now you're like, how do I handle you know, these changes that are happening to me and these feelings that are coming up. So you realize, okay, I'm going to gather some courage and approach a lady and talk to them, and then rejection begins from there.
Oh my goodness, it's true.
For a teenager,
That's another trauma.
yeah, it just completely wrecks them inside. Because I remember when we were younger, we used to I joke with my friends that we used to laugh with our stomachs. Because you'd see a chick you like, and you'd have butterflies. And when you finally gather the courage to talk to them, the words would evaporate. So when you finally have gone through the process of this is what I'm going to say until you memorize it, and then you stop them and you're able to articulate yourself, and they say no, that would wreck you, you know. But you don't understand that this is a traumatizing, you know, process that you're going through. But eventually later it comes to catch up with you, because what that did to me is I stopped trying to pursue people I was attracted to, because it hurts more. So you'd pursue someone you're not really attracted to, so that even if they say no, it doesn't hurt.
Oh my God, that's true.
Yeah. So
you're protecting yourself.
You're protecting yourself, because, you know, rejection is I don't know how to explain it, but there's shame in it. There is a sense of low self-esteem that comes with it, you know.
Let's say you're the father to this son. How would you teach him, or how do we teach our kids that rejection is okay and it doesn't define you as a person?
I think there is need for conversations around our kids. Our kids know much more. We just underestimate them like they're naive. Kids are not naive. Kids understand. Try to talk to your daughter or son when they are young and try to explain to them why you cannot give them sweet. You'll be so shocked that they can understand. My kid, I have a kid, and she understands when I tell her that, no, you won't have chocolate now, you'll have it tomorrow in the morning, because you can't eat chocolate at night, it's gonna mess up your teeth. She understands. And so I've developed this way of having conversations with her and trying to get her to understand. But then we assume that when we have conversations with our kids, they will not understand. I don't know why we have that assumption, but can we start preparing our kids for what is coming? The idea behind school is to prepare kids for tomorrow, for the future. But we just want to prepare them for things that do with books. But what about their, you know, mental and physical and emotional? Who is preparing them for that? Who's preparing them for that time that you'll be told no? You know, who's preparing you for rejection, even at work? When you have done your master's or PhD or even your undergraduate and you're told no, who's preparing you for that? Because what school teaches us is once you're number one, the world is open for you. I mean, you will succeed. But that is not what we meet in reality. So I think parents need to step back and realize you're not just dealing with someone who needs knowledge. It's not just about knowledge. A holistic human person needs much more than just books. So can we start preparing them for adolescence? Can we prepare them and tell them, you know the kind of conversations we have, especially with ladies, I hear parents say, na unilete mimba, na unilete mtoto.
It's true, imagine.
But what are you saying? You know, the question is, what are you articulating? What message are you trying to pass across?
And just to cut it short, you know, there's a friend of mine up to this time, they've never had children because they've always been told, usitulete watoto. And they've been married for years, but they don't want children because there was that stigma that was put in their head.
So you might find that in itself was traumatizing to her. And every time she thinks about having, that voice comes back. And because it traumatized her, she would feel like, no, I don't think, I have people who think getting a baby is a bad thing. I remember one time a lady spoke to me and told me, but I don't have a child, because we've put it in girls that getting a child is the wrong thing. But I'll be honest with you, when I got to a place where I got my first child, it was the best thing in the world. I have no idea why we keep putting it, you know, that no, nilete mtoto hapa. So your kid is always traumatized. So what will that make them do when they get pregnant? They will go abort. You know, they will do funny things that would even put their life at stake, just because we don't have conversations. Instead of, we threaten them, you know. And then when they come, once, let's say someone comes when they're pregnant, now we start mistreating them. I usually have a very funny thing that I say. I don't know how people are going to take it, but it has to do with especially the Christian religion. So if you're a praise and worship leader and you get pregnant, you're chased out of the church, okay? But this is the funny thing. Later on, someone is going to come back and preach to your baby that God loves that baby more than anything, but that baby was the reason why you're cast out of church because you're an evil person. How can something evil bring forth something that God loves the most? So some things don't make sense to me.
They don't.
Because today, when this person is pregnant and they choose to keep it, they've done something beautiful. There's a number of people, maybe in the congregation, who got pregnant and flushed, but they are considered to be better than that one because
we care about image more and presentation.
But can we start teaching people something different? The value of life. So that if by one chance or another you go out there and you get pregnant, let's start to value that life. Let us celebrate that life, you know?
Yeah.
Let us figure out. I'd rather we go back to when mtoto alikuwa society and we figure out how to take care of that child, other than we have a bunch of girls who are constantly aborting.
Yeah.
But these things come as a result of traumas that we instill on our children, by how we speak, by not having proper conversations. I will tell you for free, as a child, if you don't come and talk to me about the side effects of sex, I will not know. You know? Yeah. But at the end of the day, as a teenager, your body is also pushing you and you want to experiment. And when you get information from your peers, they will mislead you. You know? And then at the end of the day, you're like, wow, ntaambiaje pero. That is the fear that should never be there. Can we create an environment where our kids can tell us anything without repercussions? Yeah. Because that is why kids get raped and they keep quiet. It's true. You know? Kids get molested and they keep quiet. Because whether you say it or you not, you are the problem. Can we get to create an environment where we can have conversations? Let us not underestimate our kids.
And also, I think also the other trauma is you don't want to express because what will the other people say? Indeed. So if you're this child and you're curious about sex, yes, and you go to your parents and you're expected, a young girl expected, yes, and they'll be so traumatized because now what will people think of us? Yeah, so they start taking it as their failure as well. So I don't know.
You know, I don't know the kind of society that we're living in, but I remember in the traditional African society, there were moments where you'd have an uncle, you know, talk to someone, or you'd have an aunt talk to someone and prepare you. It's like for ladies, when they start menstruating, they would be talked to. You find we're living in a society where you as a kid, when you have your first menstrual cycle, you don't even know how to approach your mom and tell them. Yeah. You know, because they never prepared you for it. But I think it's the responsibility of a parent to start seeing that, okay, this kid is going into this place where she's about to start having this. So start having that conversation and even buy and just keep for her. Yeah. So that when it comes, she's ready.
Let's give, for example, an instance of your case story where you're a single dad raising a young girl. So she starts menstruating. Yes. How do you approach it? So
what I do is I try as much as possible to surround myself with females that she's comfortable with, you know, who she can talk to if it's hard talking to me. But the idea here is create an environment where there is conversations without repercussions, you know. From what I've just talked about, we are living in a society where you pass, it's a problem, you fail, it's a problem, because we're always looking at the failures. So once we celebrate you when you've done well, and even if you've not done so well, can we encourage you as opposed to castigating you? Then we open up that environment where we can have conversations, because this is what is important. A place where I usually say also, home should be a place I can go to and just feel relaxed. If there's so much trouble out there, I should know that when I go home, I will find peace. So if my kid is troubled out there, they need to know if they are rejected out there, they can come home and they'll find acceptance. They'll find a place to talk where they can have conversations. Yes.
So now you're a young teen. You're here. You've been, you're now going for the girls who will hurt less if you approach them and they reject.
Yes. Because the first time you see now, especially when you're young, you're looking for looks. This pretty girl, and you're like, hey, umechiki but you don't understand. There's so much that you don't understand around dating. So for you, once you see a chick and you have these butterflies, and you just want to approach them and talk to them, but then you realize that is not how it works. Yeah. So you start keeping off, but also what would mean is so many opportunities pass you by that would have worked for you, because now you have to think twice before you approach someone because of the fear of rejection.
Yes, then now you're past.
So you some things you overcome as you go through teenagehood, but some things stay with you, and it takes you to a place where you have to really think hard, especially when it comes to now marriage, because how do you get into marriage? Because now marriage means this is someone that you have to spend the rest of your life with. How do you transition from this space of dating? And just going back, you see, once you start dating, you realize that dating as a teenager does not last. These are things, you meet someone today, you date for 3 months, it's normal, and it hurts. So you get to a place where you hurt so much, you're not sure how to go into marriage and whether it's going to last or not.
Would you encourage teenagers to date at that age?
Because you see, the reason why teenagers do that is because the body is pushing them to do that. It's not like someone sits down and decides. No, it's because they're attracted. You feel, I don't know if it's lust or like you're falling in love and you want to be with someone so much, and then when you're rejected, it totally crumples you. So it becomes very hard to fight that, to fight that push. And that is where it's important to have people whom they can talk to, have these conversations with, and also a process of healing, because we assume our kids are not dating, but they are.
That's the thing.
We assume your Form 2 kid is not dating, but she is. Your Form 3 kid is not dating, but she is. So how do you create an environment where they can come to you and tell you, but then you know what? I have a boyfriend and he's doing this, or he did that, or I've just been heartbroken. Because you will realize, from what I've heard, because I've not experienced it, parents realize that their kids start changing maybe in Form 2 or Form 3, and they start being arrogant, and because maybe they were dating, they got heartbroken, and then they come back in the house and they just feel like their entire world has crumbled, and they lock themselves in their rooms, and they stop being polite, Yeah. So these are things that might happen because there's no free space of expression.
How do you teach the teenagers or young children to take rejection?
It's a tough one, but it has to start from childhood. Once you're used to it, it becomes easy. You don't just all of a sudden start it when let's say you're a teenager, because then things there are a bit crazy there. But as a child, it's easier for them to learn. Like today you have, tomorrow you might not, and that is the cycle of life. Once your kids get to understand the cycle of life, you don't always expect them to excel. Today you excel, tomorrow you fail, and that is the cycle of life. And so there has to be a sense of encouragement, whether they succeed or fail. Then they take failure as a chance to try again. So you have to teach your kids that failure is just a chance to try again, but then you will have learned how not to do it. And if you start doing this from a young age, then they get to this place when they realize, oh, she said no, there's plenty of them. And this is not the end of the world for you. And then we might have less instances of suicide cases because someone has been rejected.
Yeah, like the other day you saw the girl who killed herself.
Yeah, so things happen that are, as a society, I don't know if we are blind to it or we don't want to talk about it, but these are things that we must understand. It does not matter how much we tell our kids, like, to abstain. Some are having sex. How do we have a conversation around their sexuality, especially when they are getting into teenagehood, where they are in that phase of discovery? They want to discover themselves. They want to discover their bodies. They want to be accepted. They want to be loved. They want to be told nice things, And it is intense when you're a teenager than when you're an adult. So this is the right time for us to make men out of these kids, make women out of these kids. But we wait until later on is when we want to have these conversations with them. I don't think that is the right thing. If I had some of these conversations earlier, maybe I would have turned out to be a different person.
So what I hear you say is there is no right way or wrong way of doing it. Even for the kids, you can't tell them this is the right way. If you follow it, you're going to succeed. No. And this is the wrong way. If you follow it, you go. What I hear you say is let us allow our kids to express themselves so that they can grow to be the people that God created them to be.
You know, I'm looking at a situation where we have grown in a society where they've always pushed us towards the books, but not all of us are good with books, you know. Some of us are creatives, some of us are actors. But once you push the narrative of books, you may end up making a society that feels like failures because they didn't get an A and they give up in life, you know. Yeah. But yet it's diverse. And there's this saying that when you measure the ability of a fish by climbing a tree, you know, you're messing up. You can't measure the ability of a fish by climbing a tree. True. So how are we going to put everyone, all your kids, you put them in the same boat of, you must get A's. And if you don't get A's, can you also realize, oh, my kid loves to draw. My kid loves to express themselves. My kid loves to do this and build that. Because in the process of building that, you're also building their confidence. And I usually say, in this life, it's about surviving. It's not about A's and B's and C's. Are you able to just make it in life regardless of how? It's not always about excelling in education.
Mistakes,
yes.
Failures.
Yes. And sometimes it just takes confidence. It might take confidence. And once you kill confidence, and you might be having A's and you don't have the confidence to go and sit before a panel, you know, for an interview.
It's true.
So how do we build the confidence of our children? And I say an open space for having conversations where there is no castigation, where it is wrong, you're told it is wrong. And if you think it is right, can you justify why you think you're right? But we also in a society where kids don't talk with parents.
Yeah.
You know, but that should not be the case. I should be very comfortable around my parent. I mean, if I'm wrong, I want to be wrong around my parent. If I'm right, I want to be right around my parent. But the moment you always want to be right around your parent, you put on a mask and you don't show who you really are around your parents. Yeah.
So now you're past the teens.
Yeah.
There are more rejections and traumas coming.
But it comes down now to settling down. And settling down can be very tough because you're not sure what to expect, especially when you're coming from a background where no one gives you information. So you're figuring things out. So you're in the process of just trying. It's trial and error, you know. So you're trying this, it works, it fails. But then this is where some problems start to arise. When you're really into someone and you realize you are not able to dominate them, if you come from a family where beatings were the way to assert dominance, you might end up being a wife beater. Yes. Yeah, because of what?
Because you've shown that's your strength as a man and how that's how you should use your strength.
Yeah, to bring forth dominance, to bring forth discipline. So we end up having an ending cycle from a society, just from the society, because we put it across that this is how you get people to obey you or to listen to you. We've not cultivated a society where people have conversations, where people can just sit down and we are tolerant of each other. Can we create a space of tolerance? If we all had the same ideas, we become zombies.
I agree.
We're just following one another like sheep.
Yes.
Yeah. So can we have a space where there is tolerance of different ideas? Then I think we can excel as a society. Or else we end up getting into a relationship where your wife doesn't have a say. It's mimi don mesema. If your wife does against it, you beat them. Yeah. So.
And so we'll be marrying for the wrong reason.
Yeah,
now the man will marry the woman to be doing the chores because he needs like a subordinate, a servant, and the woman will be marrying the man to provide to them, and so we fail.
Yes.
Because
at the end of the day, because again, when you have men who want dominance but they're not sharp upstairs, they might end up asserting it by violence, you know. So there are things that can be averted from childhood just by the environment that we create for them as parents, you know. So that is what I want to do different for my child. I want to create an environment where we can have conversations, where it's okay to talk about anything, even if I'm uncomfortable around it. And if I'm uncomfortable, how can I bring in someone who would make it easier and create an environment that is comfortable for us to have some of these conversations.
And if you're brought up like that, how do you overcome the traumas?
It's hard to say how to overcome traumas, but at the end of the day is to understand. You see, that the first step to healing is to accept that I am like this because of these experiences. The second thing is to forgive those people that you think caused these things. It's a bit hard, but you just have to fight it and say, I'm going to forgive you.
I think you shared with me one of the traumas, and it was the death of your dad. How
Yes.
did that?
That was heavy because when my dad passed on,
First of all, how was your relationship with your dad?
I had the best. My dad was the best. We had the best relationship because, you know, considering I'm a multimedia consultant, I remember when I got into the multimedia industry, I started as a producer. And this was at a backdrop when people were always insisting on school. But my dad was easy enough to allow me to let me pursue being a producer. And he would all come and sit down and ask me, what have you made today, and listen to it. So we had the best chemistry, relationship. So him dying really took a toll on me. And he died when I was on my 4th year in campus. So everything crumbled for me because I was in 4th year, 2nd semester, I'm about to do my exams, then he passes on. And then now everything stops. School fees stops, fare stops. And you're in this space where like, what is going on? And no one prepared you for that. No one prepares us for when our parents leave, and our parents don't prepare us for when they leave. He was murdered. My dad was murdered. And I don't want to go into the details of it, but I would say we are living in a society that is lost. In as much as we want to pretend that everything is fine, we are living in a society that is lost because my dad was murdered because of material pursuit, material things. And yeah, let me not go into details of that. Yeah.
So now your dad passes, your world is crumbling, no one has prepared you. How do you handle it?
Music. So because I was a producer, I would write music, but also I got deeper into studying what I do now, what I consult for, which is multimedia. So I got lost into the seeking knowledge, reading books, understanding trial and error. That is how I survived that process.